What's up everybody? Welcome back to Make It Kustom. As you know, I love making tools. I really do need a proper slapper. I've made in the past this little guy. I've used it as a slapper. It's a little bit more of a spoon than a slapper. It's kind of a multi-purpose dent removal. It's kind of got a lot of weight behind it, which I like. I adjust door gaps with it. I use it for a bunch of stuff, but a proper slapper is usually a little bit flatter than that. It's like a piece of flat steel with a handle that you slap dents with. Say you've got a crease in something and you've got your dolly behind the crease, and you would slap the top so that you actually get to hit on both sides of the crease as you work it up. So a nice slapper would be awesome. I use that a little bit for it and I still make it work, but I'm gonna show you how to turn an old file into a wicked slapper. The great thing about old files is that, well, old or new files, I like using old ones because they're usually cheap. This one's seen better days. It's actually like pretty much worthless to me because somebody's used it and kind of clogged it all up, and somebody's ground on it a little bit. It was probably a couple bucks at a garage sale. I bought boxes of these things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this up and shape it into a nice slapper that I'll probably use for the rest of my life. You guys can do this too. It'll be really easy for you, especially if you've got a torch. What I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna cut the tang off of it. I'm gonna shape this down to a bit more of a handle, and then I'm gonna give it a bend like that. And the reason it's gonna have the bend is so that I can hold it and the slapper itself will drop down so I'm not bashing my knuckles on a panel. Let's get into it. Okay, I'm gonna cut that tang off first. Helps if you plug it in. Now I'm trying to think. I'm gonna cut this a little bit narrower for a bit of a grip. I'm gonna do that after I give it a bend. So, clamp it in the vise. Go get my torch here. Excuse me, sweetie. Now when you're using a torch, you've got a neutral flame. I'm gonna grab my glasses so I don't get my eyes all messed up. This is what you would call a neutral flame. If you add a little bit more acetylene, that would be a carburizing flame. And if you add a little bit more oxygen, it's an oxidizing flame. I don't use oxidizing flames for anything. It's either neutral for cutting or carburizing for heating. The reason why you want a carburizing flame for heating, it's a couple hundred degrees cooler, but it gives you a larger area of heating where you're not gonna just burn your metal. When you're on a neutral flame, it's extremely hot right at the tips of that flame, the little bright tips. It's very hot right there. But when you've got a little bit more of that tail, it heats a lot more evenly. So that's just a little tip, I guess. I'm gonna give myself about maybe 4 inches to hold on to. A little bit of a tip. I want to go a little more. Hey, we've got a little bit of a bend in it. Kind of feels nice. If you look right down, put a little bit of angle on that, just so it gives you a little bit more clearance, kind of tipping your hand up rather than having your hand totally flat. Okay, I'm just gonna cool it off real quick. Nice thing about files too is that they're very hard. We're mostly hitting up here. Our heat didn't go too much in there, so I don't think it's gonna lose its temper up top there. It feels pretty good. You know, you kind of stick your finger on there as you're tapping. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna grind this up. I'm gonna smooth it all out. Some guys use them and leave the file on there so that as they're hitting, they can see the file marks. I don't know if that's what I'm gonna do. Well, I know it's not what I'm gonna do because I don't wanna remove material at that point. You know, if you're using it as a slapper, you kinda wanna get the material as close as you can. I'd rather use, you know, dye if I'm trying to see the highs and lows. I don't necessarily wanna remove metal at that stage of bodywork. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grind this down. I'm gonna take the edges off of it so that we're not making, you know, crease dents in anything. But for the most part, we're gonna keep this nice and flat and then just make sure that our corners are nice and rounded. In case we, you know, hit an edge, we're not putting an actual crease into anything. And that'll make a good slapper. This is just 80 grit. I think we're gonna have to go to a 36 grit instead, just to cut it a little bit faster. Obviously, this file is super hard, it's high carbon steel, and then we'll work our way back to the 80 grit. Yeah, the more I look at this thing, I do like it, but I think that this step is not quite big enough for my knuckles. So I think it would work great for a lot of things. Most panels have a curve in it, but I'm picturing myself working on a fender and the fender's going this way and I'm trying to do it here. So I think that my knuckles would be tapping. I'm gonna try and get maybe another ½ an inch of depth out of this. I'm just gonna rebend it. I've got plenty of length here, so I'm gonna take a little bit of this length out and just get a little bit more depth into it. The beautiful thing about a slapper, making a tool like this, is you make it however you want, whatever you think is gonna work for you, and chances are you'll probably make 2, 3, 4, 5 of these in your life that are all a little bit different. Sometimes you might want a little bit more of a curve. In this case, I do want a flat one. I've never had one that's totally flat for those, you know, really flat panels, something, you know, on a flat side of a car or something like that. So that's what this one's for. Just trying to straighten that out so that it's not super ripply. A little bit more depth on it. Okay, I like that a lot better. Now we've got plenty of room for the knuckles. Still got a long, flat area. Just gonna go cool this off. All right, so since these are usually used for surface finishing. We want to try and finish our surface as much as we can. I want to polish this almost. So I'm gonna keep sanding this. I'm gonna go finer and finer grit, and then eventually I'm gonna put a bit of a polish on it. And it should keep that polish pretty well, being that we're gonna be doing relatively light duty work with one like this. You know, my other one, my larger, heavier spoon I'll probably use for heavier things, but this one being lighter and being flat, I'm gonna just be using it for small dents, small, you know, creases, that kind of thing. I'm not gonna be wailing on stuff, so chances are it'd be really nice if I had a nice finish on this so that I'm not marking up whatever I'm working on. So I've already got it down with a 36 grit. I'm gonna step up to my 80 and just keep going on it. All right, now comes the long process of stepping up our grits. So I'm gonna go from 80 to 220 to 400 to 600 to 1,000. And then finally, I'm not sure if I have 1,500, but I wanna go to 2,000 with this and then hit it with the polisher. And then hopefully it holds its polisher so I don't ever have to do that again. All right, so I'm halfway done sanding. I could probably stop here. It's pretty shiny. I'll let you have a look at it. This is where I got to. This is just 600 grit. This is probably a fine place to stop, but I'm probably gonna go just a little bit further since I'm here, since I'm doing it. But yeah, it's like looking like a really nice slapper now. It feels really nice in my hand. I've got room for my knuckles. It's definitely gonna be a good one. And no, it's not for sale. It's gonna be in my personal toolbox for probably many, many years. But I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna go 1,000, 2,000, then we'll take it to the polisher. Might as well make it look like chrome. I'm probably only gonna go through that once. But this same process is kind of what you would wanna do to finish any of your hammers, any of your dollies. If you want to dress your body tools, just slowly step up, you know, a couple hundred grit at a time, 400, 600, you know, 1,000, 2,000 grit, and give it a polish, and you'll be really happy with the results. And they do slide a lot easier when you're moving them around. They do, you know, transfer that polish to your metal. It does look really nice, and it does work really nice. So, you know what? This goes for buying used stuff too, because I buy a lot of my stuff at garage sales. I've bought hammers and dollies at garage sales that people have beat to crap, and they've got gouges in them. You can just redress those. It's not a big deal. It's important to know how to redress them so that you can keep maintaining them for the rest of your life. Okay, I'm gonna get back to sweating and sanding, and then we'll give it a polish. All right, it's not 1,000% perfect, but it's 100% good enough. I think it looks awesome. You can see how flat it is. You know, when you're grinding, you gotta make sure that you're trying to be pretty even. I wanted a really flat one. You know, I've got curved ones and stuff as well, but I love it. I think it looks great. I think the handle's okay too. I just rounded it off a little bit. It feels pretty good in my hand. I can sort of hook my finger on the top there and use it like this. You can see from my Aussie friends there, this is a Wiltshire, Australia file. Not that that means anything. I'm sure it's a high quality file. It was very hard to polish and to sand, so I'm sure it's gonna last a very long time. But there you have it, making a slapper out of an old file. When you go purchase a good quality one, I think they're about $100 or so, maybe 80 bucks for one. So technically, I mean, I could have worked on somebody's car and got paid for the amount of time it took me to make this, but I like saving money, I like making tools, and I like showing you guys stuff. So hopefully you found some value in the video. Hopefully you'll try this yourself and maybe just get a little bit more confident in making your own tools. You really don't have to spend a ton of money on stuff to get by and to get started building custom cars and working on, you know, vintage restoration type things. So what I'm gonna do is show you how to use a slapper, where you're going to use it, why you're going to use it on this hood. This is a 1940 Willys hood that had a bunch of tree fall damage. There's 3 other videos on getting this massive dent out of here, but there's still always little bits of work to do, so I found a few low spots that we can attack with our slapper, and that's what it's for. It's for finishing. It's for the small dents. Any of the small little lows, you can use a slapper and get them out. The reason a slapper works so well has to do with the amount of surface area that you're hitting on. If you can picture a small ding, just a tiny dent going down into a hood, say you've got a rock that just smashed a little dent. You're holding your dolly on the back side of that. There's a lot of pressure on that dent because it's a small area touching your dolly. Now with a large area on the top, you're spreading the load. You're spreading the load of the hammer across a larger surface area, and that's forcing the load all the way around it to be focused on that small dent. So instead of pushing everything down, it's pushing that dent up. I don't know if I've explained it well enough, but hopefully you understand. When you have a large surface area, you're using less force on the top of the panel. There's less weight on the top of the panel for the amount of weight and force that's pushing up on that small dent because you're spreading the load. That's what it is. Or if you've got a crease into something, you're able to hit both sides of the crease with something like this. If you're using a hammer, you know, if you use a hammer, you're gonna have to work your way around it, and you've got a lot more force on a small surface area of a hammer than you do on a large surface area of a slapper. So you'll be able to focus your dolly and your force on those small dents and pick them all up by spreading the load on top and having the dolly on the dent at the bottom. So we're gonna get into this. I'm gonna mark out using a big Sharpie. You can use, you know, layout fluid, machinist die, whatever you wanna call it. We're gonna do that. We're gonna scratch it up so that you can really see where our low spots are, and we're just gonna work out these small dents right here. I've got this little area where you can barely see it. I'm gonna highlight it again with the marker, but these are our highs and those are our lows. So this little area here is where we're gonna work. This right here, we're gonna work that out with our slapper today. All right, I'm just gonna highlight our area here. Okay, so I just give it a little bit of a scrape. It's gonna show us where the lows are. Wherever the marker stays, those are the lows. Okay, so we actually got quite a bit. So when you're using a hammer and a dolly or a slapper, there are other videos on this that go a little bit more in depth. You always want the dolly to be on the low spot. And it's the hammer on dolly off technique, meaning the hammer on the highs and the dolly is on the lows. You're not slapping or hitting your hammer directly against this. This is meant to push up on the low spots, which are all these spots that you can still see the marker, and the hammer is gonna hit down on the high spots, which are all these light spots. Because it's a slapper and it's totally flat, you can go right across those low spots with the hammer because it will not go down into those lows and contact the dolly unless you've taken out the dent. What I'm gonna do is I've chosen this dolly. It's the right profile for this curve, or as close as that I have. I'm gonna push up on the low spots from underneath with the dolly and slap along the high spots. And as we work it, we're gonna continue marking it and scraping it with the highs, and you'll see that these dents will start to come away. So the first dent I'm gonna work on is this one right here. This dent right here is the one I'm gonna work right now, and you'll see us get that out. See how much of that we already got out? Do it a little bit more. I'm gonna pop up on the low a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna move over to this one. Yep, that one's gone. Just in case we made any new ones, we'll go over this again. Go over the whole thing again. Okay, so a lot of it's come out. We can get a little bit more of this stuff out. But that first dent is gone. Okay, our lows are getting a lot smaller now. All right, well there you got it. The slapper works great. Took care of our dents in that one area. There's a lot more to go. But I'm really happy with this tool. I think I'll do something to make the handle a little bit nicer. I might get my lovely wife to wrap it in leather or do something neat like that. But all in all, I mean, it kept its surface finish as well. We slapped some rusty old metal quite a bit, and the finish on the surface here still looks like I just polished it. That's why you use a file or a leaf spring. You know, spring steel or high carbon steel is what's best to be used for hammers and impact tools like this. So thanks a lot for watching Make It Custom, everybody. I really appreciate all the comments, likes. It's been great so far making videos for you guys. Me and Christina really enjoy it. So thank you very much. Everybody have a great day. Don't forget to like, hit subscribe, click notifications, tell your friends, and we'll see you on the next video.